Right, Ivan, thanks for joining this conversation. Thanks for joining me on this lovely Tuesday. You mentioned that it's around lunchtime right now in your time zone, and I'm very, very appreciative that you've taken the time to tell your story with me and our audience. As I mentioned on our previous conversation right now, one of the plenty things that stood out and made an impression on me for me to invite you in this podcast is the immersive experience in sales that you have as a sales leader as well, managing and growing sales people and teams with huge numbers. Like once something that I noticed around your profiles were more than 300 personnel across 6 regional offices, and just coming coming out of working in small teams and in medium teams, I would love to learn how is it to manage something huge as this. So one of the many achievements that I want to learn more about and the lessons that you've learned. Even thanks for joining this conversation. How are you?
Good, Nico. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. This Tuesday, right?
Yep.
21st of November afternoon. Uh, Very good to be here with you today, and I look forward to a fruitful and fun discussion.
Glad that you join me once again. First of all, now we chat, we briefly talk right now before the recording. But as any episode that we portray to our audience, we want to see how your hero arc has been building over the years. Now, even though your current position, it seems like you already got it all and you already know it all. I'm sure that there was a learning curve starting from the beginning, starting from being still, I assume, a teenager in school and then university where you started narrowing down your path. So, can you explain to me and our audience what were the initial years before you figured out your path? Like, what was going on in your head?
Yes. Well, I was in high school. I finished my high school in Greece. And then, when you're 18 years old, you're kind of forced from the education system to decide what you want to do, right? But when you're 18, you're 18. And you have limited experience. So as soon as I graduate from high school, my interest was in sports, but then I decided to continue further my studies. So I studied in Switzerland, and then I continued in the UK, and I grew up in Greece, up until 18 years old. And then when I started, I suppose, looking back, when I started to travel a lot and study and explore different cultures, um, I suppose it opened up my mind. Like I realized there are so many more things I can do, and there are so many jobs out there that I didn't even knew they existed. So and especially when I remember, if you come from that background, Greece. I know a lot of my friends when they went abroad to study, they always missed the good weather and they kind of came back and everything. But for me, it worked a different way. I suppose one led to another, and it kind of opened up my mind. And technically, after 20 years, I'm kind of still returning back from my studies. I went to study, but I never kind of went back.
Uh,
And and excuse me, that's where I started to explore the world, work with different cultures, and work in different countries and with different cultures, and one led to another. My kind of appetite opened, and I wanted to explore more things.
this is very important that you mentioned, and just want to sum it up again for the listeners now. We both come from, I assume, pretty similar backgrounds based on
I
the
think so.
geography. You
Yeah.
are a neighbor in Greece, here in Bulgaria, and the main thing is that when you're growing in a specific environment, you don't know what is it out there until you go out to reach it and to explore, right? So the main thing, the key activity that you've done in these, the last teenage years is to actually grab your stuff and go explore more and get this act on this ambition that you have had in those years. So just want to highlight on this how important it is to not sit down but actually go out, and if something is not happening in your environment, just go out and change the environment. It's relatively easy nowadays. Yes, sometimes you need to work more on the resources, but it's relatively easy to pack your stuff and see something new. You mentioned,
Well,
just to
yeah,
add
just to,
something, you mentioned that you have some experience in sports, right?
I when I was younger, in my 18 and 20s, I used to participate in a lot of sports. I was a semi-pro professional player. And it's quite interesting. Now, one of the courses I teach at the EU Business School in Geneva is sports career to business graduates.
Now, I just want to dive deeper into this before going on to the story, like because it's still connected to the challenges that every hero face in the beginning of their journey, and even most of the time we face challenges nowadays. How did exactly sports help you, overcome challenges along the way?
Look, I didn't really practice sport too much, but if I can combine sports and my business background
Yeah,
and experience is similar, because when you practice sports, you learn resilience, you learn how to follow rules,
mm,
you learn how to enjoy the game. And business is very similar to sports because it has a competitive nature. They both have. And one of the things I teach when I do business coaching, it's like two things: follow the rules and enjoy the game. Because if you don't follow the rules, you're going to be kicked out. And if you don't enjoy the game, there is no point in playing.
that makes sense. That's why I want to drive those comparisons, because indeed those two that you've mentioned, those two main points are very important. Like following the rules actually also allows you to know how to use them to your advantage, right? Is this something
Yes, if
that
you are smart enough, yes, yeah, I suppose. And what I mean by following the rules is not to restrict, but you know, uh, you go into any sort of game,
yeah,
if it's a team sport like football or if it's an independent sport like tennis, you go in with the motivation to win. No one goes in with the motivation to lose.
obvious.
Um, so you cannot do whatever you want. You have to follow certain rules. That doesn't mean you cannot be creative, right?
Yep.
But it means you follow the path. Both players or both teams must follow the path in order to have the same kind of rules to see who is going to win. Now, that doesn't mean not being creative, especially in business, right? But
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're into business, I don't know, you should kind of enjoy the game. Because if you don't enjoy, really, if you don't enjoy the process, you won't last long and you will throw the towel at the first obstacle that comes your way.
I like the way that you summarize it. Like if you just don't enjoy it, or sooner or later you're going to quit it, because down the road you just want, at the end of the day, want to be enjoying what you're doing throughout this day. Something else that you also mentioned from the sports analogy is actually the resilience that you built and that it's taught through having this sport type of mindset. Now, the resilience is definitely needed in this first stage of figuring out who you are, figuring out what you're good at. Can you walk me? How did you figure out what exactly you're good at and what exactly you want to, improve in, and what were the first problems that you faced?
Yes, how I figure out, with me, it comes, I suppose, just by doing things, just by
Mhm.
by getting different experiences. Because you see, our ideas in general, and our perceptions and our assumptions and our beliefs are formed by our experience.
Okay.
Think about it. I give you a quick example. Let's say you take a flight and the flight is a bit bumpy, and you might end up when you land, say, look, I'm scared of flights. Because that belief comes from your experience, and we cannot blame you. So with me, and I suppose the more you do, the more you experience, and you might say, as we used to say in the UK, they have an expression: there is more than one way to wash the dishes. It means I can do this, I can do that. That's a new work I can do. That's a new place I can visit. That's a new career I can explore. So with me, it came with doing more things and experiencing. And I think it's down to the individual. Now,
Mm.
um, and I think it's having looking back, it's like having an open mindset, having a growth mindset versus a closed mindset. And especially over the last couple of years, where things have changed a lot, is being adaptable. And as Charles Darwin said, about the evolution of the human species, he said that it is not the smartest or the strongest that survives, but the one who is most adaptable to change. And if we look back from COVID and a couple of years ago, I think this is very relevant, especially when it comes to managing people and running companies and all that, because you cannot have the mindset if you want to be successful. I think it's the wrong mindset if you think this is how we've always done it.
Yep.
You know, Adaptability and resilience, I believe, are quite important in today's workplace and work environment and life environment in general.
I agree with you, Ivan, because when you when we go back in the past 15, 20 years, now we see how dependent we get on technology, and at the same time we see how quickly technology changes. Like, and even when we take the phone as an example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the only purpose of the phone was to pick it up and to talk to somebody on the other line, not to see each other, not to communicate with messages, or all of those different activities that we could do today. And when we do it on a daily basis in one way or another, people change as well, like our minds change as well. So it is only right to be able to adapt to those different situations. If you want to scale your business or just to even preserve your spot on the market.
I mean, look, there is, especially you mentioned technology. If I can
Mhm.
share, is like technology has always been kind of developing, but lately it's developing really fast. Um, and you mentioned the phone, right? The phone nowadays, you can do everything from your phone: banking, shopping, booking tickets, work, recording videos, sharing content, working, sending emails. Like, and I don't remember the last time I went into a bank. I can open an online bank account. I can do
Yeah.
my banking there. Like, it's an extension of all our life and work. And there are some people that find this technological advancement quite challenging, and I can understand that. And some of those people, they might decide not to accept it. And there are people actually that don't accept all this
Yep.
speed, and they decide to live somewhere more quiet and form their own community, and that's absolutely fine. And what can we do? But I think resilience and adaptability, um, In the world that we live in, it's quite important.
Going back to adaptability, as you mentioned it, I wanted also to know and understand what were the main challenges that you had to adapt to, and the big changes that you have had to adapt to. You also mentioned earlier on in this, before we even started recording, you recently switched locations. So assume there were a lot of changes in your life. What were the biggest ones that have influenced your life?
Look, I think for everyone, including me, was since 2020 when we had the first lockdowns.
Okay.
For a couple of years, it wasn't easy for anyone, right? So with my work, the most challenging part was to switch remotely.
Okay.
And all that happened really fast. you know so that was one of the biggest challenging for challenges for me, and I suppose for a lot of people as well. And but as we say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You have to
Mhm.
think on your feet, and you have to adapt, and you have to change, and you have to be flexible. Otherwise, you're gonna really be left behind, because things are changing and so fast, and you're gonna really be left behind.
Okay, I agree with this. And something that I want to follow up with based on this question. Now, the other achievement, the other milestone that impressed me was that you are also an author of the book Leading in VUCA Times, which VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? What was the thought process behind creating this book? And can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about it?
Yes, it's interesting actually, because a lot of people ask me what does VUCA means, and you have done your homework, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In my book, I kind of, with my book, how to put it simply, I share my experience and my mistakes and my examples, and I provide also actionable steps for managers and for leaders and for business owners in today's world that we live in. Like, how can you manage and motivate and bring out the best of your people in a remote setting? Some of the business owners out there that I coach and train, and some of the managers, they have remote teams. They have people working for them that they've never seen face to face. So, how do you make sure that these people produce? But how do you make sure they stay in your company? How do you make sure they are happy at the same time? How do you make sure they get the job done? So the reason why I wrote my book is, actually, I don't really care how many copies I sell. I really I just wanted to share my experience and hopefully help some of those managers out there. It really came from an internal need to offer and to share my experience, and to offer some of the strategies to navigate the ever evolving business landscape successfully.
And this was it triggered because something in your business, you found a specific need in your business and your experience, or was it triggered from an outside event, like, for example, the pandemic that came?
Yeah, that was one of the good things of the lockdowns. It actually gave me time to write the book, because during from 20 and 2022, I wrote it in those 2 years. I suppose, like a lot of people, I did all my work virtually, so I didn't need to commute. So every day I was like saving 2 hours every day, 1 hour to go, 1 hour to come back. I didn't have to do this anymore. So I put this time and I wrote this book. And the other need was, like, with the work I do, I coach and train business owners and managers. And a lot of times at the end of the coaching, when we finish the training, I give them this book as well. And, it's a kind of a continuation of my service. And, Nico, companies and organizations really, they are like families. And as a manager,
You
if you
know,
know how to navigate the complex environment of organizations, not only as a manager you advance your career, not only your employees will be happier and will produce more, but also you will live and you will have a better life yourself.
I love this outcome. Like if you focus more like on the start with the managing part, but then down the road to focus more on your employees, eventually it turn out beneficial for you as well, not only professionally but personally as well. Am I right?
Absolutely, yes.
Great, great, great insight. And I want to follow up on this, like, so just in terms of what was the process of writing the book, because I want to focus on, like, again, the power of storytelling. You mentioned that you are sharing in this book your experiences and your thoughts. Was there a specific framework that you followed while you were writing the book, or how did you approach it chapter by chapter, for example? Can you tell us about the process?
Yes. Well, first of all, I've got a company to help me with the chapters to outline. Uh, but the content, no, look, I just put my experience. I look at my CV. What did I do this year? What did I do in this company? What did I do there? What did I do? So I create an outline of what I did. And then I took what I did, what I've learned, what mistakes, and then year by year. So I reflected back in my experience and I started to write this book.
This sounds a lot like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this way you can also create a very good case study for your business. Like, describe what you did for this specific company or with this specific product. What were the wins? What were the lessons and the losses?
Yes, yes. Like my book has 40 chapters, 40,
Ooh,
which is quite a lot, but I don't have a copy here to show you. Just so, yeah, I actually, you can send me your address. I should send you a copy.
great.
No worries. And no, it's 40 chapters, but each chapter is not long because each chapter provides specific, either an example or what the mistake or a lesson or some actionable steps. Like one of the chapters I have there is how to do a how as a manager you can correctly do a performance review to an employee.
Okay, thanks for the
So
example.
the book derives purely from my practical experience managing and working with people interculturally and so on and so forth.
Great. And something else that I wanted to connect to this storytelling approach and the experience that you have, I understand that you're also applying hero's journey type of approach to your sales trainings as well. You mentioned that you introduce some heroes, some villains, without giving away too much details and giving away your secret sauce. Can you explain how exactly you approach this?
Yes. Look, yes, I provide a lot of sales training and sales training to sales professionals as well as sales coaching to people that manage salespeople, to VP of sales, sales managers, also to smaller kind of SME CEOs that are directly involved with selling. Now, what is the mistake of a lot of salespeople do? They talk too much.
Mm.
And that may sound, you know, strange, but actually, a professional salesperson should not talk too much. What shall they do? They should build relationship. They should have good product knowledge of their own product as well as of the competitors. They should be themselves, and the most important thing, they should ask good questions. So in a sales conversation, the one that shall be doing most of the talking is actually the customer, not the salesperson. 70-30. 70% of the time the customer shall talk. And what shall the salesperson do? Ask smart questions in the right way that uncovers clients' needs, clarifies fast, and then guides the client towards your solution. So with that approach, the salesperson comes across as a consultant,
Mm.
not as the typical sleazy salesperson. So ask open ended questions, then move to probing questions, nail down effect, and then go for closing. But a lot of salespeople, the mistake that they do, once they get hold of a customer, they cannot wait to tell the customer about the benefits and the future and the features of the product or the service. But I teach a reverse psychology approach. So, for example, a quick one: if a customer comes in with a problem, the first question I ask is, how long has this been a problem?
Mm. Okay.
Because why? Because if the customer tells me, oh, this has been a problem 1 year now, 6 months, I will tell him, why do you want to take action now? Because
Yeah.
as a salesperson, I want to differentiate. Is the client committed to find a solution, or is just wasting time?
That makes a lot of sense. That filter them in the beginning by how much time, right?
Yes, you want to make sure as a salesperson you qualify the customer.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you also talk to the right person. Is your customer the decision maker?
Okay.
Is he the one that he is going to write the check for you, or that he will influence the decision maker? Because sometimes I see a lot of people pitch and pitch and pitch, and then the person says, I need to talk about it with my manager. But you know what
Mm.
will the manager do? Yeah, leave me some information. I will think about it because I'm too busy. So you need to make sure that you are talking with the decision maker. Otherwise, you're wasting time.
Funny story about this, just to include here. I had brief sales experience, and one of the most common obstacles was like, yeah, I first need to talk to my wife about it. And thinking about it right now, you realize who is the decision maker in situations like this.
Exactly. And is your wife exactly? And you're probably done B2C sales. In
Yeah.
B2C sales, it's like, yeah, you really need to talk. You need to know, who are the people involved in the decision. And if it's a B2C sale, if you need to decide with your wife, I want your wife involved in this conversation, bring her in. Otherwise,
Yep. No point.
90% of the time is going to be a no.
Yeah.
And what is the problem? Then the salesperson, then the client ghosts you. It means the client disappears, and you end up chasing. Have you read my email? Did you have a look at the product? And that's not.
This is like, yeah, I agree. And just to sum it up, for what I understand is that in the past years, the approach to a proper sale is getting more and more customer centric, like figure out why exactly those customers are in front of you, start by filtering them out, start by open-ended questions like you mentioned, start drilling them down with more specific questions, and eventually when you see that this person or this business is a good match for your product or for your services, then start closing. Otherwise, it's just waste of
It is because what is the biggest enemy in sales? Time. We
time.
only have 24 hours. So you know the Pareto rule, you want to be spending 80% of your time with 20% of your good potential customers. 80% of your profit will be generated from 20% of your leads. So you really need to find out who these 20% are and give 80% of your time.
Fair enough. Great. I love the way that you summed it up. I love the insights because they're very direct, very specific, and everybody listening to this, if they're involved in sales or even in marketing, I still see touch points to this because as marketers as well, we need to listen to our audience. What do they research? What are their specific pain points? And how can we promote again our products or our services so they can take advantage of them? I want to follow up on this and start and end up the episode with one specific question that I ask all of the guests. Now, every time we get to a point that we need a little bit more motivation, a little bit of inspiration for our, for our duties, we usually think about a story or hero, could be fictional, could be somebody from our real life that inspires us. Like, for example, one of the stories that I always turn to is Lord of the Rings. It's just a comfort story that you can put it on and eventually feel inspired and motivated for the next day. My question to you, everyone, is what is a story that works in the same way for you?
Look, for me, my motivation, that's your question, right?
Yeah.
What is my motivation? Yeah. I don't really have a specific hero. You see, my hero is behind, my son.
Yeah.
He just opened the door. Uh, my environment is my hero. Okay. So you need to look at what motivates you. Okay. Is it, what do you want to achieve? For example, my hero is like my family. When I wasn't married, maybe my hero was something else. So you need to look at, or why do you do what you do?
Okay.
You know, ask yourself your big why, because your why, of course, possibly is different from my why. So, and this is where self awareness comes in. I
Yeah.
remember, when I was in the UK, I was not married. I was enjoying, what I mean enjoying, still enjoy what I mean not married. Different life
Mm.
part. I was working very hard. My hero was just to make money and have fun on the weekends. But if when I look this back now my motivation is genuine. My genuine motivation now is different. So life is a journey,
Yeah.
and we change and we adapt and we get different motivations. So, but in terms of understanding others, and and understand, you need to understand yourself first of all. And it's about having a vision,
Yeah.
and having a vision, and see what do I want to do, where do I want to, having a vision is important in your life as well, and that vision may change, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. But having a vision, if you look at all leaders like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. If you look at Mahatma Gandhi, if you look at Alexander the Great, um, if you look at all great leaders, they all had a vision. And you really need a vision, because if you don't have one, you're gonna really give up with the first challenge that will come your way.
And here again, going back to something you said, while you pick your vision, you also have to have fun with it. You have to enjoy it to actually make it last longer.
Yes, and these are not easy things to answer, and you know, since lockdowns and for the last couple of years, we've seen things like the Great Resignation, where people resign,
Yep.
where people say, "Look, I want to work less. I want to work two part-time jobs," and they say, "Look, I don't want to work for this manager anymore that keeps screaming at me all the time." So I actually call this the great resignation. I call it the great reevaluation of
Yeah.
people values, which led to the great resignation and making choices they have never made before. And people nowadays, if you look at the newer kind of employees, you know they are informed, they want, the new kind of employees, they want to be involved in decision making, they have opinion, they are opinionated, they they want to be involved, they want to be developed. It's not like my father and our family where they worked in the same job for all their life. You never left, right? You have you have like the same you have the same shop, you have like a supermarket for all your life, or you work for the same company all your life. Now things are completely different.
Indeed, it's completely different scenery, and one of the main things that I can take from this conversation is you need to adapt. You need to change to the specific markets, and you can, complain and stay angry about it, but down the road you are only harming yourself. You better adapt. You better find your purpose, and this way you heal not only yourself but the others around you as well.
And what's the great thing about it? It's that with the rise of technology nowadays, you can learn something new even though you are 40,
Yeah.
50 years old. You were a musician, you go be a plumber. You were a plumber, you go be a musician. You were a doctor. I said, I had enough. I want to be a carpenter because I like to work with wood.
Yep.
And you can actually nowadays study online from your home at the fraction of a cost in 2 years, in 1 year, get a degree, and you can start. And that was not possible 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Indeed. Awesome. Um, Something that I have for that is there something that I forgot to ask you, or is there something else that you want to tell our audience before I let you?
But suppose if the final message I can say in terms of life and work, you can become what you want to become. I really believe this. If you really want something, with technology nowadays, with education being available to everyone, you can become what you want to become. And it's not like before, like you work for the same company or for the same person until 65, and then you retire and you go to the coffee shop to drink coffee all day. Nowadays, you can restart your life and you can do what you want to do, even though you are 40, 50, 35, 55, especially with life expectancy going up.
I love this final message because it still connects to the hero journey. Like you can become whatever you want to, just figure out how to do it, go through the troubles, go through the challenges, learn new skills, again, adapt to the specific lifestyle that you want, and eventually, with the right amount of time, you can get to this point, the dream point that you have in your mind. Evan, thanks a lot for this conversation. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me and tell your story not only to me but to our listeners as well. Wish you a productive day ahead, and I hope to talk to you soon once again.
Thank you, Nico. It was a pleasure being with you today.
It was a pleasure. See you.